What's up, everybody? In this video, I'm going to talk about how my tiny house Airbnb was actually set on fire. And here I stand in the aftermath. The tiny house is less than 50 feet from our actual home, which is literally right over there. The home that we sleep in, dine in, raise our son in. So although we were devastated, we thank God that A, the fire didn't spread to consume, the exterior of the tiny house, and B, it didn't spread to our home or the homes of our neighbors. Like literally the thought of that has my heart pounding a little bit with anxiety at the sheer thought of that. So in this video, I'm gonna give you a quick rundown of, what the actual fire experts said occurred, because there was a little bit of deception when we asked the guests what happened. And I'm also gonna give you guys a review of Airbnb's Aircover. And then first of all, I need to get out of here because it smells like smoke and it's starting to mess with me a little bit. Like, it literally still smells like smoke in here. So I'm gonna give you a quick video on my phone of the interior to kind of show you guys what happened. And then we'll sit down and I'll break down Airbnb's coverage, the insurance, and if they were able to get us taken care of and squared away. As you can see, it's pretty burnt up in here. It's pretty bad, man. Embers landed on the bed. The floors are just all beat up. It's really not good. The fire experts came in here, moved some things around and everything. But, as you can see, this is the source of the fire. This is where it started. You don't have to be a fire expert to know that. I mean, look, this is where it started, right here on the stove. I mean, even the knob on the stove has popped off. It completely burnt up. The side of the microwave, you can tell that the fire was burning there because underneath the floating shelf is completely black. The fire really tore it up. It was actually so hot that it broke this window here. And this is, oh my gosh, thank God that this is actually a double paned window. Had that second pane broken, it would have given oxygen to the fire, and the fire would have essentially been able to escape out of the tiny house and begin consuming the exterior of the structure as well. Look at this toilet. The shower is done for. It's so bad in there. And then of course, we have to kind of talk about the bed as well. There's a lot of discrepancy in terms of how the fire started on the stove and then ended up over on the bed. There was a lot of discrepancy as to how that happened, but we have the truth. Highland, how did you feel about tiny house burning down?
Tiny house.
Do you remember the tiny house, little baby?
Yeah. Tiny house. Tiny house.
Okay, so while my wife and I were on a trip to visit family in South Carolina, we get a message around midnight from a guest saying that there's been an incident in the tiny house. Please give me a call. And they basically said that they had left for a concert and returned to the tiny house in this condition, basically implying that the tiny house had somehow spontaneously combusted. And the funny thing is, they never called the fire department or the police. They literally just packed their bags and they went to get a hotel. And, once we returned, we were able to get a fire report and start the claims process with Airbnb. So, for claims over just a couple $1,000s, Airbnb actually uses a separate claims management company, and these companies actually have their own adjusters and claims specialists, fire and water damage experts. And so because our claim was, substantial, Airbnb connected us directly to this company. They took our statement. They reached out to the guests for a statement as well. They required us to list the estimated cost for every item inside the Airbnb that was damaged by the fire. So these are items like the stove, the microwave, the linens, the TV, like all of the things inside the tiny house that can be easily taken out of the tiny house. So like not the drywall or the floors or the cabinets or anything like that. That was really tedious, but of course we got it done. And before I get into this, let me reiterate that the guests never actually admitted to starting the fire, and turns out that was a lie. A fire expert was actually sent out from the claims company to essentially reconstruct the damages, and turns out what they did was they placed a book bag on the stove, and on their way out, they accidentally hit the knob into the on position, and then they left for their concert. That ended up being the initial source of the fire. That stove burnt up the book bag, and the heat from the fire was actually so hot that, not only did it, completely char the underside of the butcher block shelving, but it actually broke the first pane of the double pane window. And because it didn't have any, additional oxygen or ventilation to continue to feed it, the fire ended up essentially kind of just burning out and putting itself out. So I say all that to say, the verdict was clear that we were not at fault, and the next person Airbnb basically sent out to take a look was an adjuster, and they basically come in, they take measurements of the walls, the ceilings, the floors, the cabinets, the tiles, the shower area, all of those things. And they plug those figures into a software called Xactimate. And what Xactimate does is that it spits out a total dollar amount that includes the cost of materials, the average cost of, labor for contractors in our area. And the software essentially gathers this information directly from, the hardware stores, directly from hundreds of contractors that probably use this software as well, other insurance claims. And it's basically like an aggregate of the average cost for materials and labor, specifically in the area that we live in. Airbnb also reimbursed us for about 15 Airbnb bookings that we had to actually cancel and refund those individuals due to the fire. I wasn't completely satisfied with this because we normally get 50 bookings in a 2-month period. So to only be reimbursed for the bookings that we currently had on the books and had to cancel was a little bit disappointing. We were hoping that they would take like a monthly average and average those prices out in terms of what you normally get per month, and then add that to the total distribution. But that was not the case. We had 15 active bookings that we had to cancel, and so we were reimbursed only for those bookings that we had to cancel. So the entire process from start to finish took about 2.5 months, and they issued a payment that actually did in fact cover the entire cost to rebuild the interior, and they took into account the inflated cost of materials and labor. So all in all, we are satisfied with the results, and we do feel like we were essentially made whole again. If you have an Airbnb, I would totally recommend having some sort of high-tech smoke detector that can send alerts to your phone. If you have a really high-end property, you might even want to install a sprinkler system. There's also these things that we found called stove reminder discs. And basically you put it at the knob of the stove, and it blinks red when the stove is on, a bright red light, so that there's no mistaking whether or not the stove is left on. There's even these fire blankets that work better and faster than a fire extinguisher. And essentially you just take the blanket, you throw it on whatever is burning at the moment, and it completely puts it out. None of the mess that comes with blowing that thick fog from the fire extinguisher. So after it's all said and done, we actually do have a really positive experience with the Airbnb Aircover insurance. It did get us squared away. They worked pretty quickly. They were very sympathetic. They answered all of our questions. They were available every single day. There was times where we were getting a little bit antsy, and we were reaching out to them probably more often than we needed to. And they responded every single time. They didn't try to cut any corners. And all in all, we were pretty satisfied. So if you have an Airbnb and you're wondering if the Aircover insurance is sufficient, I'll definitely say it is sufficient, but it's probably also a good idea to carry your own policy. You know, it probably is a good idea to do that as well, because a lot of times these insurance policies aren't very expensive, especially if the Airbnb is maybe like on your property, but it's detached. You can actually get something called additional structures insurance on your policy. That may only add, you know, $100 or $200 a year, and that will give you even greater coverage in addition to Airbnb's Aircover insurance, and it'll really make sure that you have a greater sense of peace of mind. So that's all I have for you guys today. Catch you in the next video. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time.